The classroom was buzzing with laughter and whispers, but in the far corner sat a girl so quiet that most people barely noticed she was there. Her name was Aisha. She was the kind of student who always kept her head down, books neatly stacked, and never raised her voice. Teachers loved her discipline, but students often mistook her silence for weakness. That day, things would change forever. It started during break when Aisha was quietly flipping through her notebook, sketching little doodles in the margin. A group of notorious bullies led by Zion, the loudest and most arrogant boy in the class, decided to have some fun. They were used to picking on students who wouldn't fight back. To them, Aisha was the perfect target. "Why do you always sit alone?" "Ha!" Zion sneered, yanking her notebook from her desk. His friends laughed, passing the notebook around like it was a toy. Aisha stood, her hands trembling, and whispered, "Please give it back." That only made them laugh harder. One of the boys shoved her lightly. Another one leaned close and said, "Say something louder for once, shy girl." But then it went too far. Zion grabbed her collar with both hands, pulling her forward as the class watched in shock. Some giggled, others froze, too afraid to interfere. To everyone, Aisha was helpless. But what nobody knew was that Aisha had been training in Judo since she was 9 years old. She had learned self-control, patience, and most importantly, how to defend herself when truly necessary. She never wanted to use it. But now, with her collar clutched in Zion's fists, something inside her snapped. In one swift, almost invisible movement, she gripped his wrist and twisted it with precise force. The crack echoed through the room. Zion screamed, collapsing to his knees, clutching his arm. The room went silent. His friends, shocked and panicked, lunged forward, but Aisha didn't flinch. With calm precision, she grabbed the second boy's wrist as he reached for her. Another sharp twist, another cry of pain. The classroom turned into stunned silence. Even the teacher who had just entered froze at the sight, the quietest girl in the school standing tall, while the bullies who had terrorized others for years crumbled at her feet. Tears welled up in Aisha's eyes, not from fear but from release. Years of being ignored, years of being underestimated, years of holding everything inside had built up to this one moment. She didn't break down, didn't scream. She simply stood her ground, her grip steady, her voice finally strong. "Don't ever touch me again." The bullies, clutching their injured wrists, backed away. The entire class watched in awe. The shy girl they had overlooked, the girl they thought was powerless, had just shown a strength none of them could comprehend. But Aisha's strength didn't lie only in her judo skills. In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. Other students, inspired by what they had seen, began sitting with her. Some whispered apologies for laughing before. Others shared their own stories of being bullied. Aisha realized she had sparked something bigger than herself. Still, the challenges weren't over. Rumors spread, and some teachers questioned whether she had been too harsh. Aisha worried that her moment of courage might turn into punishment. But when the principal called her into the office, she explained calmly what had happened. She spoke with a steady voice, no longer trembling, and the principal listened carefully. To her relief, the school decided to take a stand against bullying more seriously. Workshops were introduced, counselors spoke to students, and the culture slowly began to shift. Zion and his friends were disciplined, but more importantly, they began to change after realizing their intimidation had no real power. Aisha, once invisible, became a quiet symbol of resilience. She didn't suddenly become loud or outgoing. She didn't have to. Her strength wasn't in changing who she was, but in embracing her quiet nature and knowing when to stand firm. Her story spread beyond the classroom. Parents told their children. Teachers used it as an example of courage. And to Aisha, the most powerful part wasn't breaking free from the bully's grip, but discovering her own voice, a voice that could not be silenced anymore. By the end of the year, Aisha no longer walked the hallways alone. She had friends who respected her, teachers who admired her, and even those who once mocked her looked at her with new eyes. Not because she fought back violently, but because she proved that true strength is quiet, disciplined, and unshakable. The girl who was once only seen as shy had taught everyone a lesson they would never forget. Silence is not weakness, and kindness is not an invitation to be broken. Sometimes it only takes one moment of courage to change everything. Aisha had always been the quiet one. Ever since childhood, she had preferred listening over speaking, reading over chatting, and sketching instead of gossiping. Her silence wasn't because she had nothing to say. It was because she had learned early on that not everyone cared to listen. At home, her parents were loving but busy, always working long hours to provide for the family. At school, her quiet demeanor made her an easy target. For years, bullies had whispered names behind her back: mute girl, ghost, statue. And though their words hurt, Aisha never showed it. She had built walls inside her heart, strong enough to keep the pain hidden but also strong enough to keep others out. But outside of school, Aisha had a secret world. Twice a week, she went to the local dojo where her uncle taught judo. He was the first person who told her that silence was not weakness and that discipline could be her shield. Remember, he said once as she learned her first wrist lock, judo is not about violence. It is about control of your opponent and of yourself. That lesson echoed in her mind on the day Zion grabbed her collar. The grip of his hands was rough, pulling her forward like she was nothing more than a rag doll. The humiliation burned her chest. Everyone was watching. The old Aisha might have endured it, holding back her tears until she got home. But this time, she didn't freeze. The training she had buried deep within her rose to the surface. She remembered her uncle's words, remembered the countless hours of practicing grips, throws, and locks. And with one precise motion, she twisted his wrist, not out of rage, but out of instinct. The sound of pain silenced the room. For the first time, Zion, the fearless leader of bullies, looked powerless. But the story didn't end in that classroom. The next few days were heavy with whispers. Some students were afraid of Aisha now. Others admired her courage. Zion's group kept their distance, but their glares followed her in the hallways. And though she had won that battle, she now faced another challenge, the fear that she had gone too far. At night, Aisha lay awake, replaying the moment. The crack of Zion's wrist haunted her. Had she done the right thing? Was she any better than the bullies if she had hurt them? Her uncle noticed her silence at practice. After class, he sat beside her. "You're troubled," he said softly. I think I hurt them." Aisha whispered. "What if I was too harsh? What if people think I'm dangerous?" Her uncle looked at her with calm eyes. "Aisha, judo is not about starting fights. It's about ending them. You didn't attack. You defended. You showed them that you are not someone to be toyed with. That is not cruelty. That is strength."